Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, sitting down to talk about Xbox, the situation surrounding Redfall, and the impact it's really having on the brand. Like it or not, Xbox and Bethesda are directly intertwined, and you would not be faulted for thinking that has been the case for now multiple years. It was just at the top of 2021 that we saw the Xbox Bethesda Roundtable, followed by the Xbox Bethesda Showcase 2 years in a row, but it seems like according to a brand new report from my good friend Jez Corden, Xbox and Bethesda are still working on internally connecting, and what we're seeing is a lot of just branding practice, if my assumption is to be correct. There's much to be said about this, but all of it speaks to what is going on with Redfall. Why didn't Xbox quality check this? Why didn't they delay it? Is Phil Spencer responsible for this? Is Matt Booty, head of Xbox Game Studios, responsible for this? Who do we got to blame? Who are we pointing the finger at? That was the big question I've been asked. Like I said in yesterday's Starfield video, the two big questions Matty was getting after his Redfall review: Xbox should be embarrassed, talk about it. Starfield, the pressure's on, talk about it. And yeah, Xbox has a lot to answer for, like it or not. And so there is smoke to be had here, but within reason, because I've seen some pretty horrendous takes online. I'll share which I think are pretty bad. And I think some people are coming from a certain degree of bad faith arguments, trying to prove points that really ultimately are disingenuous. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here, you're into Xbox news, information, conversations. I know it's looking grim now, but we got the showcase coming up soon. We just got the big graphic saying it's on the 11th. It's going to be followed by the nice Starfield developer direct. So hopefully that'll mark a turning point, but I think many of us are out of hopium. So let's begin with the article we're going to talk about, because again, a lot of the question I'm getting here is, how did this come to be? Is it because of Game Pass? Is it because of failure at leadership? Is it because of Bethesda? Is Arcane just making a really bad game here? What happened? I think the article is at the core of it all, where we can start and kind of leave a lot of that baseless speculation to the side in a video that's on a much more serious topic. So let's read. Now, of course, there will be the full article linked down below, but I'm just going to grab the main highlights here for the information I think you need. However, I've been told by multiple sources that Xbox was entirely hands-off with the project, that project being Redfall, and that the game doesn't fall under Xbox Game Studios director Matt Booty's responsibilities because, rightly or wrongly, right now, Arcane is not an Xbox game studio by internal definition. Acquisitions are difficult, mergers are harder, and despite what pundits online say, Xbox and ZeniMax are still integrating. To call what happened with Redfall teething problems is probably an understatement. I like that little pun there. But like it or not, it's absolutely true that Redfall flew under Xbox's radar. People have been asking why Microsoft CEO Phil Spencer didn't delay Redfall, or why Xbox Game Studios lead Matt Booty didn't ensure a basic level of quality. ZeniMax is still operating as a separate entity, for better or worse. ZeniMax has a completely separate process for developing and shipping games, and it wasn't within Matt Booty's remit to be handling Redfall, as well as the several other Xbox Game Studios that are currently under his purview. Booty's role is to handle franchises that are internal at Xbox, including Age of Empires, Flight Simulator, Forza, and so on. Spencer oversees the entire business as a whole, and speaking completely realistically, it shouldn't fall on him to get the minutia of every single game launching under the brand. In any case, this isn't a defense of how Microsoft has set up its internal game dev studios, nor is it a criticism. I'm just relaying the current facts as they are with regard to how integrated some of the teams are. The question we're ultimately left exploring here is, should Microsoft create a stronger pipeline for oversight, or is there a happy medium between oversight, support, and independence? Because it's absolutely true that everything that occurs within the Microsoft gaming umbrella reflects on the public brand, and that is Xbox, and Xbox is hurting right now. So there's been two names tossed around: Phil Spencer, Matt Booty. Heads gotta roll. We gotta get rid of them all. I would just say, let's take a breath for a moment. Now, I'm willing to have a conversation on the quality of Xbox first party, and I am not one who stands on their head to defend Phil Spencer. I think he's a great guy. I like that Xbox has leadership that enjoys video games, that plays video games. And we've seen the fruits of that in things like Game Pass, like xCloud gaming. There is good qualities to this leadership, but I've absolutely given them the smoke when I think it's necessary, which I don't think enough Xbox fans do. What I'm seeing here is a very extreme but understandable reaction. People want accountability. How can this keep happening? If you look at it in the literal sense here, and again, you would be forgiven because I'm in the same boat as you until this article dropped, thinking that Xbox and Bethesda are in the same basket, but if they're not, Matt Booty is doing a pretty good job. When you look at the Metacritic overall score for all these various Xbox Game Studios games, they're doing really well. It does feel like internally a new quality bar has been set. I mean, in 2021, they were the best publisher of the year. So there is something to be said that Xbox has done a better job in some regard under a very particular definition. And if you leave out things like, how the hell did Halo Infinite happen? Still no answers truly on that, but they're making changes, and I'm never going to defend that. I think it's inexcusable that they let what happened to the flagship IP happen. But now we're finding out that despite all the branding, all the marketing, the roundtable, all the, let's call it as it is, bullshit, that they're actually not as together as we've been led to believe. And the reason I call it bullshit is because if y'all aren't paying attention to this game, what the hell are we doing capping off E3 2021 with the goddamn game? If Redfall isn't a true Xbox game that you believe in, that you're saying there's one more thing. We're not idiots. We all know for a fact when you go, there's one more thing. That's the wow announcement. That's the big announcement. And when you're acting like one big happy family, but the reality is you're not, as a consumer, as someone who's been a fan of the product for a while, and a lot of the changes that leadership's made, that to me is disappointing. While I love Jez's reporting here, to me, it shows Xbox's ass more than before what happened with Redfall's release. Like, I think this, to me, it takes a while. I get that. I'm not going to pretend to know everything about mergers and acquisitions. I think my coverage of it is pretty obvious because I always claim, like, look, not an expert on this, but as a fan, it's frustrating that you've sold me one idea of how the two are deeply integrated, and the reality is that you are not, to the point where you can stroll out a game like Redfall, which absolutely should have been held back. This goes to previews, right? A big thing people have been asking, and again, you can check out my preview. I was not gung-ho about the game. I had positive things to say, but you'll look and I said, this can easily change when you get 10, 20, 30 hours in, and goddamn it was I right, to a horrendous extent, mind you. But there were members of the press really losing their mind over this game, saying, oh, it's Arcane back at their best. I would have never gone that far. There were some encouraging elements, but it's always a wild and different experience from 2 hours to 10 plus hours. The reason I bring all that up is I do think it takes a little bit of time for Redfall to really show the nasty parts of it. I think it's immediately apparent when you see things like the takedown animation, or really the lack thereof, that there is something kind of problematic here, but you feel like, okay, I got to see how the skill system develops, how the actual world develops, how things change. And when you realize it's all immobile, that it's actually a big problem with the game. And this is something that internal QA, internal reviews would catch in a heartbeat. When you're going over a game and you're like, okay, what do we think this is going to score internally versus what we're going to get externally? They usually have a prediction. And I imagine that prediction was low because, little known fact, review codes came in extremely late for this game. Because originally I was on Defining Duke predicting like, low 80s probably. But actually review codes started to come in pretty hot nearing Friday. A lot of people didn't even have it. And the embargo, as you all know, lifted Monday. I'm sitting there like, yo, there's a problem here. This is coming in hot with a capital H-O-T, and there is a problem, no doubt. And so immediately the expectations started to decline as the truth came to light. And so I bring all of that up because I could see that through just a little bit of extensive time beyond my 2-hour-ish preview with the game. Xbox and Bethesda, someone had to know about this. And that is the problem I have here, is the reality is no matter what reasoning we get, quality control was not deployed for this game. And if it is just Bethesda, I gotta express true, genuine disappointment. Y'all did it again, just this time to a different studio. You did it to one of my favorites of all time in Bethesda Game Studios, and now you did it to another favorite of all time of mine in Arcane. Is it up next? Are we gonna see the same thing happen to Tango now? Like, man, I get there's business realities that many of us consumers will never understand, but this is the truth of the matter. Bethesda and Xbox are still world separate, it sounds like. And what does that mean for, again, this is why that video on Starfield was made first. what does that mean from a man Starfield? What does that mean if Bethesda has clearly not shaken off the 76 ways of like, you know what? This thing ain't ready and here we go, let it rock. And then Starfield gets even more delays compared to Redfall. And I know one game isn't the same situation as another. One could be in Starfield getting a quality check delay, like let's polish this one up to a shine, versus Redfall, which is like, yo, if we release this now, like this isn't even an alpha build right now. Like you got to get this a little bit further. So it's not necessarily the same situation per studio. Of course we know that, but it doesn't necessarily build confidence. You thought the Red Ring was bad. You thought Xbox One was bad. If Starfield flops, I'm not trying to be extreme. It will be hell on earth for them for a long stretch of time because that is the game. Again, they've decided to build the box around because the fans said, that's our game. That's the game we've been looking for. That's the premium AAA $70 experience that we want. They've made that selection. You got to be able to read that and say, hey, look, ZeniMax, I know we're not fully integrated yet, but they seem really excited. Can we just check it out? Like, because the reason I bring all that up is when you look at Activision Blizzard, right? When the acquisition was announced, there was a direct quote on the Xbox Wire from Phil saying, when the deal is done, they'll report to me, Phil Spencer, CEO of Microsoft Gaming. Kind of a you-know-what on the table kind of moment, right? You're going to report to moi. And I feel like this man at the head of Xbox, Microsoft Gaming, whatever you want to call it at this point, this dude can get in the building and see how things are going. Now, I do think it's fair. I think it's 100% fair what Jez says. I'm not pointing my finger solely at Phil because in my opinion, this brand ain't around without this dude. I'm not calling for his job and I'm not calling for Matt Booty's job because in all technicality, and if what Jez says is true, Booty's also doing a good job, right? The problem here is that there was somehow this failure to recognize that, hey, if Redfall or Starfield suck, it's going to reflect poorly on Xbox. And I just cannot believe that, strictly because the amount of mental obstacles you got to go through to convince yourself of that reality when you're continuously marketing like the Xbox and Bethesda showcase. We're one big fan. And you're telling me, oh shit, Redfall's flop actually makes us look bad. Yo, who knew this was going to happen? Really? You're going to try to sell me on that? I don't like that one bit. And if that is that level of cluelessness, now's a good time. Take a breath, collect yourselves, recognize Starfield is the big moment. I think Redfall shouldn't have had to, as I've said before, suffer so that Starfield could run. But here we are. This is the reality. You've now had the ability to collect yourselves and see, okay, this will reflect on us. And there's even more hype for Starfield. If it needs time, please, for the love of God, give it. Because holy smokes, man, none of us, YouTubers, press, you especially Xbox, you especially Bethesda, we don't want that. We want the best possible game, man. There's so much riding on this one. Unfortunately, I feel bad for Todd and the team because they already put a lot of pressure on themselves. They work so hard. They make amazing video games, and now they get the pressure of selling the system, the pressure of delivering within vicinity of Elden Ring and Tears of the Kingdom. But you know what they say? You got to beat the best to be the best. Not to sound like fanboyish, but like that, I don't know. I've been watching a lot of playoff hockey, so I'm feeling kind of inspired in a sportsy way. So pardon me. But anyway, that's all we got on this one. Is Game Pass to really blame for all this? Again, if Xbox is not so deeply intertwined, I personally think not. I don't know if I could fully blame it in confidence. I think if Xbox is intertwined and they still let this go, yeah, we have a conversation there. Is it possible Bethesda took a look at this and said, oh yeah, we got Game Pass, so like we're going to get a good player count at least? Maybe, but I think at that point we're just ebbing into guesswork versus what we know and what's been reported. So I personally don't want to blame Game Pass, especially when the real focus this year, outside of a couple misses, I think of Atomic Heart as one, the real focus has been, I think, quality over quantity. We're getting less big Game Pass drops with like 20 plus games, and instead we're getting a decent amount, but more day one games. I prefer that, so I'm less inclined to blame Game Pass personally. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got for you in today's video. I'm very much looking forward to hearing your thoughts again on this topic and seeing how you all feel about the state of things with Xbox. So fire away. And with that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that as it fuels all the content I create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.